Hey guys, GC here with Vendetta Waterfowl, and this is episode 2 of Speck Call Basics. So last week we talked about the proper hand position, the introduction of air, and the 2-note. Today we're going to be talking 3-note and single cluck. But first, let's recap last week's episode just to refresh everybody. The proper hand position, I have my call hand and I have my free hand. The call hand is the one that holds the call. It's going to go between my thumb and index finger and just kind of sits on the fat of that palm. It just kind of rolls over the front of it, and then my index finger does the same. Now, that index will sit in this little pit between your thumb and the palm, and you're not squeezing it. It just sits there. It literally just sits there. If you squeeze it and shake it and it doesn't move, you're squeezing way too hard. Just barely hold it. Now, I'll stick my finger in the end of the call and wrap the rest of my fingers around it so I don't close in too tight. That's a good gauge. You may need to move it out or move it in a little bit, but you shouldn't. That's usually a good gauge to stay where you need to be. You want it open. Then you have the crack in your palms. Butt number 1 slides, sits in the crack, index over pinky. And remember last time I talked about the 2 fingers or the cupping on the end? We're going to get into that with the single cluck today. But air introduction real fast was your diaphragm and your throat pushing that air. Squeeze with your diaphragm, squeeze with the tank, open the valve. That's all you're doing is pushing that clean air. You don't want hot air. We'll get into the hot air, clean air thing later when we want to use that hot air. But for right now, let's just keep it clean air. You don't want that. That's hot air. That buzz, that voice. We don't want any voice. Just clean, a clean push of air, a whistle. If I buzz it, if I put the hot air, you don't want that. Just a clean whistle for right now. Let's talk about the 3-note now. So, the 2-note is a 2-note because you have a bump and a stop. Well, a 3-note just has 2 bumps and a stop. It's a lot simpler than it seems. It's not that far off of a 2-note. It is a 2-note with an extra bump on it, if you don't want to call it a 3-note. But as you go in 4, 5, 6, 7 notes, all they are is adding bumps to the beginning of them. So it sounds like this. Instead of just a bump on the end. That's all it is. Now, you can go back and forth. We want to go back and forth. That creates what we call a note string. Now remember, we're not defining out and refining everything on these notes. We're just working on the shape of them here in the beginning. Later episodes, we're going to get into all that cool stuff. But right now, let's just keep it basic and get your fundamentals squared away. So the 3-note to the 2-note to the 3-note. That's the beginning of a note string. And you're going to start practicing that now. Just like this. Just going back and forth. Back and forth. A 3-note, a 2-note, a 3-note. A 3-note, a 2-note, a 3-note. And you can do that with the hand drill. Pick it up, run 3 or 4, put it down. Pick it up, run 3 or 4, put it down. You need to constantly be working on that muscle memory of your hands until you get it. Once you can pick that call up, you can go into just practicing without doing it. But I advise that you always practice picking it up and putting it down, getting in that motion until you get that hand positioning down. But we need to build our lungs up at the same time. So the simplest way to do that is try to do it on one breath. Practice it alone, and then practice it with one breath. Try to run as many 3-2, 3-2, 3-2, 3-2, and you're going to mess up on the end. That's okay. But when you come back, start over. Do it again. See how far you can get before you mess up. Try to push yourself further. If you can only get 7, 8 notes out, try to get 9 or 10. Okay? We'll practice that. Now the single cluck. Let's talk about the single cluck. Back to that hand positioning. So I get my hand right, get everything good on my hands, and I'm just going to slide these 2 fingers over at the side. just going to slide them over. And that's going to be the correct way to pop that first cluck out. You can open your hand, which I encourage that down the road. We're going to be opening and closing, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that. You want a clean, crisp pop. So you're going to send the back pressure up on that reed to get that clean, crisp pop by sending those fingers down. Now, putting the air into the call, you're going to squeeze with your diaphragm, and you're going to push the air out. And it ties back, just like I said in episode 1, the 2-note being the base of everything. That stop that we learned, that is a cluck. We just want to sharpen it up a little bit. Almost like you're pushing out foot. If you slow that stop down real slow, I'm not voicing foot. I'm just letting the air create the F and then the T on the end. So it's foot, just like that. And that's the single cluck. So it sounds like this in the call. Now remember I told you shifting that finger down would change things? Listen to this. I'm not going to change the amount of air. I'm just going to change the position of those 2 last fingers. That's a single cluck with no change in the air. The only thing I changed was the back pressure. And you see how much you can manipulate that? Now you have 2 sounds just by moving those fingers. That's all it takes. Practicing the single cluck, once you get it down, practice it by itself and just get that clean crisp. Once you get that clean crisp sound, we're going to start a cluck string. And you start real slow with that cluck string. And it's harder to control a cluck when you're doing them by themselves. It's easier to get into a rhythm, but I want you to slow down. I want you to challenge yourself just to do them by themselves. When you slow them down, start real spaced out, a second between each one. Hold your breath. Don't just stop the valve. Don't let the air out using your throat. That's control. You're learning control by doing that. So back to the string. You're going to start real slow on one breath and run all the way up. You'll see what I'm talking about, and all the way down. When you get to the top, kind of hold that tempo there. This is about tempo. Hold that tempo at the top. Now you can only single cluck so fast, and when you get to the top, you'll shift into a double cluck, and that's next week's episode. But right now, we're just focused in on getting that single cluck to a faster tempo and coming down. Try this. See how I worked it up, held it for a second, brought it down? Do that 5 or 6 times when you're practicing. When you're doing that 3-note, 2-note, 3-note, 2-note, and you need a break, go to the single cluck. Run a cluck string up and bring it down. If you practice it on one breath like everything, it'll build your lungs up. It'll build your lungs up. You can even do the hand drill, pick it up, run 2 or 3 clucks, put it down. And that'll help you find where your hands need to be. So next week we're going to cover the uck and the double cluck. That is a really fun lesson. A lot of guys enjoy double clucks. They're fun. They're great to use. You get a lot of speed, a lot of loud sound, excitement out of them. Looking forward to that. If you guys want to see anything, if there's anything you have questions about or want to see in content, just let us know in the comments. Go ahead and leave a comment and let us know what you want out of these instructionals. I love that. I love to help you guys as much as I can, and I look forward to teaching you some of the cooler stuff as we get down the road once we get through all these basics. But anyway, be sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, if you click the description on these videos, we laid it out in chapters. So if you want to jump to the 2-note, jump to the 3-note, jump to the single cluck, air, hands, whatever it is, those are all laid out in chapters now. You don't have to sit there and watch the whole video or try to find it. It's also, when you click the scroll on it, it'll come up there for you as well. Anyways, I'm GC with Vendetta Waterfowl, and like always, get mean and get even.
It's once a year, every day through the fire.